Finally, question number 4. What is the purpose for the shofar blowing at the end of Yom Kippur Ne'ilah? Is it a zecher for the Yovel year, shofar blowing? Are there any parts of the present day Yom Kippur service that commemorate the Yovel year Yom Kippur service? Well, so you have the pasuk in Vayikra Perek Chafei pasuk Yud. This is where you have the verses about Yovel, right? V'kidashtem et shnat ha'chamishim shana, and you will sanctify the 50th year. V'kratem dror be'eretz l'chal yoshva. And that's the the theme song of liberation movement, right? Declare freedom throughout, proclaim liberty throughout the land. This is the Liberty Bell. It's based on this particular phrase. Yovel hi tiyeh lachem v'shaftem ish el achusato. Everyone will return to their holdings. V'ish el mishpachto tashuvu. So all the avadim ivriyim should go free, not the avadim k'tzanim, which is a bit of an exception, but the avadim ivriyim and all of the land will go back to the original distribution. So there won't be a permanent non-landed class. There won't be a permanent slave class. The assumption is that this is a leveling process to try to even out the economic disparities within society every so often. However, but we don't have Yovel Bisman Hazeh. We don't have this land distribution, even in the land of Israel. And for the most part, we don't have Eved Ivri, as far as I know. Essentially, that's indentured servitude. And it was up until recently. The halacha talks about having servants in your home and what you can ask them to do, etc. Even in Europe, it seems that certain people they would do this. Perhaps the same way, like in England, someone from a poor family, they would be in service, and they would be, we know that people were apprenticed that way, and certainly they would also be working that way. But in my experience, I've never known anyone who has that kind of relationship with anyone. But I think that this is more figurative than literal. And I attached an article that I found that Michael Taubes wrote about this issue of the relationship of Yovel to, what the Tkiyat Shofar is. And some people say it is an issue of Yovel. I'm particularly taken by Rav Kook's idea, which is on the second page of this, where he says, it's about 6 lines down. Rav Kook explains that Yovel is a kind of social and economic revolution necessary for the equilibrium of society. Similarly, and Rav Kook was uniquely positioned for this because of all Torah people, he was very sensitive to the society or of Israel. In other words, what should an ideal society look like? And he felt that Israel had that opportunity. There's an essay wrote where he writes how the world wars are terrible, but there is a silver lining in world war, where when a world war happens, all the societies take stock of what are they doing wrong. And if there would be one country somewhere which was doing it right, then everyone would emulate that country. It sort of happened with the fall of the Iron Curtain, everyone emulated the economic level of the United States. I don't know if they emulated the political, because we're under this, I think, illusion that everyone wants democracy and we're going to go over and spread democracy all over. It seems that some societies don't want it or can't do it. And so it's a bit presumptuous on our part. Not that we should necessarily not try, but the expectation that it should take hold, is it really reasonable? So Rav Kook had this idea that Israel could be this, when he talked about Or LaGoyim, he didn't feel that Jews should be scattered throughout the world. That was one view that even the Gemara mentions, that what does it mean to be Or LaGoyim? Let there be Jews all over the place, and they will exemplify what it is to live this kind of life to others. Rav Kook said, no, let there be one Jewish country, and that country will exemplify. Of course, you don't do it when every other week someone is indicted for corruption, but you do it with, when you have exemplary aspects of society. That might be unfair. I remember when I was in KJ many years ago, I was giving a shiur. One of our friends had tried to go on Aliyah, and she had gone to the airport to greet one of the prisoners of conscience. And when these Russian prisoners got out, so it would make a big deal. And while she was away, her apartment got burgled. So she wrote to us, here I am. I'm trying to live in Israel. I'm trying to do the right thing. And this happened, and it's so discouraging. So I don't know. I made reference to it in my shiur, the Gemara shiur I was giving, Turned out that the Israeli ambassador to Switzerland was at the shir. I didn't know that. And he comes up to me afterwards and he starts saying, "Oh, you guys are all alike. You think that this is so pure and perfect. We have Israeli tzaddikim, we have Israeli criminals, we have Israeli this. It's a society like every other society. And on that level, that's probably true. But then there's a certain level of expectation also about what it could be. Rav Kook certainly saw what it could be, and he reflects it in his writings. So here also he says, similarly, the purification of Yom Kippur is the ability to transcend the shackles of the evil inclination. It proclaims freedom from the desires of the Yetzer Hara. So it's figurative freedom. It's not freedom in terms of the Eved Ivri, it's freedom in terms of the person, which is very much in keeping with the famous statement in Pirkei Avot. We'll go back to page 6, where it says in Perek Vav, Mishnah Bet, although it's not really part of Pirkei Avot, it's something that was added, Amar Rav Yeshua ben Levi, Yomer HaLuchot Ma'aseh Elokim Eimam, Nichtav Elokim. The Luchot were made by God, the writing was by God, Hu Charut Al Luchot, it was engraved on the tablets, Al Tikra Charut Ela Cherut. So they're punning, just like the Yehi Ratzon by the Simanim are puns. Well, here's another pun, right? It doesn't say Cherut, it says Charut. However, I can use my homiletic imagination and I can understand the word, particularly when the Torah doesn't have vowels, so therefore I can read things all sorts of ways. So it says, Cherut, she'ein lecha ben chorin ela misha osek b'Talmud Torah. Which, if you think about it, is a bit of a paradox. At least from some perspective. Really? The person who is completely designs his life to be, to adhere to Torah mitzvot is free? Isn't the guy who has no Torah mitzvahs free? He can do whatever he wants, he can go wherever he wants. We're free? Well, it depends on what you mean by freedom. In other words, what is it that you live for? What is it that you do? So you could say, well, we're free from giving in to what the rest of society is motivated by. In other words, I'm free from peer pressure. Let's assume that everyone's doing a certain thing. I don't have to do it because I know, either because I've learned how to discipline myself or because it's glat usser, I'm not going to do something that's usser. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter if it's the most popular thing. So that's a certain kind of freedom, which frees you from pressure, even frees you from pressures within yourself. In other words, you might want something, but you can't have it. So I remember Riskin told us once his daughter, now his daughter's much older, but one day on Shabbat she said, I want to draw pictures and I can't. She said, but I have this picture inside of me that wants to come out. So yeah, okay. So all of us have certain desires. That doesn't mean that we act on them. And so there's a certain idea of freedom that, I'm sorry, I can't do this. It's against my principles. It's against my religion. So is that being free or is that being constrained? So Yom Kippur, assuming that you did the heavy lifting of tshuva, at the end of Yom Kippur, you are truly free. Because all of those chata'im that you might have done were the result of giving in to forces that you thought were beyond your control or that you didn't care to control. And all of a sudden, you're free of that. You don't have to, you feel that I am above that. And I can determine my own destiny. I am not just a product of all kinds of drives or all kinds of outside influences. Whether that does it for everyone, I'm not sure, but it's an interesting idea. A simpler idea, I think, and there are a number of positions. Just notice the second position where it mentions here that the Kolbo says it's meant to confound the Seitu. It's a rather esoteric idea. But there's a similar thing in the Shulchan Aruch about the tefillot at the end of tefillah on Rosh Hashanah. That's sort of like, we're about to go off to eat and drink. By the way, don't worry about it. We remember what was going on. In other words, that the shofar is lingering in our minds. It's not something that we just perfunctorily did. Well, Yom Kippur is lingering in our minds. Yeah, now, it's always interesting to me to see the first opportunity you have to do a mitzvah after Yom Kippur is Ma'ariv. And how few people do Ma'ariv properly because they're just in such a hurry to get out. And it's such a disconnect in mind.
How many people stay for Ma'ariv?
Okay.
Never done Ma'ariv during the year.
Okay.
Turn it around.
There you go. So being done b'kaf zchus, that's my Shabbos Shuvah drasha. In other words, we should be less judgmental negatively and try to be judgmental positively. So you're the Levi Yitzchak Berdichev contra to me, to me who looks at things a little more darkly. But the assumption is that we should be able then to be consistent, and we should be able to, as the whole idea of quickly building a sukkah at the end of Yom Kippur. No, you're into doing mitzvah, right? Well, go for it. Here's a mitzvah bali atkal tachmitzena. So do it as with as much alacrity as you possibly can. But we're human, and we just fall back. We slide back, which is disappointing. I mean. Although I'm no greater tzaddik than anybody else, I mean it affects me as well. But you have these idealistic aspirations, and then you don't always live up to them, and that's that's confounding. Anyway, thanks for coming, and
Thank you.
we should all have a happy Rosh Hashanah, a productive Rosh Hashanah, a good Rosh Hashanah, sweet year, meaningful, all that stuff.